For some of us, being alone isn't just a preference, it is an absolute necessity. While the rest of the world rushes from loud event to loud event, desperately seeking the next social interaction, you find your peace in the quiet. When you close the door, lock out the noise, and are finally left alone with your own thoughts, you don't feel lonely. You feel free. There is a person the world doesn't know how to categorize. They don't crave the spotlight, they don't beg for a seat at the table, and they don't broadcast their every thought for a hit of digital dopamine. Society calls them strange, antisocial, or distant. But there is a secret the crowd doesn't understand. Psychology reveals a profound truth. Intentional solitude is not a weakness, it is a rare psychological power. The ability to sit alone in a room, completely at peace with yourself, is a sign of immense emotional maturity and high intelligence. A person who has mastered the art of being alone is the most dangerous person in the room. Not dangerous in a way that seeks to harm, but dangerous because they are entirely beyond control. When you don't need the world's validation, the world loses its power over you. But there is a catch. There is a very thin, almost invisible line between a mind that is at peace and a mind that is trapped. Because while solitude can be your greatest superpower, if you aren't paying attention to why you are alone, it can quietly become completely toxic. Let's first look at the power. When you spend a significant amount of time alone, you develop what psychologists call psychological sovereignty. In a crowd, your brain is constantly performing. You are adjusting your behavior, your words, and your beliefs to match the expectations of the group. But in solitude, the social gaze is removed. You are no longer being watched, and in that quiet space, your mind begins to filter out the noise of society. It becomes more aware, more reflective, more precise. You replay conversations. You notice patterns. You connect small details. And slowly, you develop something dangerous. Emotional clarity. Not just about yourself, but about others. You begin to understand motives, unspoken feelings, hidden intentions. And here's the part no one talks about. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. Imagine talking to someone and already knowing how the conversation will go. Not because you're psychic, but because you've seen this pattern before. The same words, the same behavior, different person. You start predicting reactions, reading between the lines, sensing when something feels off, even when everything sounds right. It's subtle, but powerful, and a little isolating. Because now, small talk feels exhausting. Surface-level conversations feel empty. You don't want noise anymore. You want truth. But truth is rare. So you stay quiet more often. Not because you have nothing to say, but because you see no reason to say it. Pause again. Ask yourself this. Have you ever stayed silent? Not out of fear, but because you understood too much. This is the edge, the one people don't expect. When you spend time alone, you don't just become independent, you become hard to influence. You stop chasing approval. You stop reacting quickly. You stop getting pulled into emotional chaos. Because you've already sat with your own thoughts. You've already faced your own feelings. You've discovered your true morals. You have built an ironclad sense of self. This makes you incredibly formidable. People who cannot stand to be alone are easily manipulated. They will bend to the will of toxic people just to avoid being abandoned. But you have the ultimate leverage. You cannot be threatened with isolation because you love your isolation. You do not need the crowd to feel whole. Your solitude acts as an impenetrable shield against manipulation, drama, and emotional vampires. You are an observer, untouchable. Because when you're no longer easily influenced, you become difficult to control. You don't follow the crowd. You don't react the way people expect. And that can make others uncomfortable. They can't read you. They can't predict you. Because you learned how to sit with silence, and silence taught you everything. But here's the twist most people miss. This isn't about becoming cold. It's about becoming clear. There's a difference. Coldness pushes people away. Clarity simply sees them for who they are. And once you reach that point, you get to choose who you listen to, who you trust, who you allow into your space, not out of fear, but out of understanding. Final pause. Think about your life right now, the people around you, the conversations you have, the energy you give. Are you reacting or are you seeing? Because people who spend time alone don't just become lonely, they become aware. And awareness is a quiet kind of power, the kind that doesn't need attention, doesn't need validation, doesn't need noise. It just knows. And once you have that, you don't need to prove anything anymore. You just move differently, silently, but with intention. But this is exactly where the danger lies. Because highly intelligent people love their shield so much, they often forget to take it off. And eventually, the shield becomes a wall. The tipping point between healthy solitude and toxic isolation comes down to one single question. Are you alone because you are seeking peace? Or are you alone because you are hiding? Healthy solitude is a choice. It is something you do to recharge so you can return to the world stronger. Toxic isolation is driven by fear. It is a slow, quiet retreat from reality because reality feels too overwhelming, too painful, or too difficult to control. When your alone time stops being a way to recover from the world and starts becoming a way to avoid the world entirely, your sanctuary has become a prison. And here is what happens to your brain when you cross that line. In healthy solitude, your brain engages in reflection. You process your day, you solve problems, and you find creative inspiration. You control your thoughts. But when solitude becomes toxic, reflection mutates into rumination. Because your mind is so powerful and so highly active, if it is starved of new experiences and human connection, it will start feeding on itself. You stop processing the present and you start obsessing over the past. You replay old conversations. You invent future arguments that haven't happened yet. You analyze every flaw, every regret, and every anxiety. The quiet room, which used to feel like a fortress, suddenly becomes an echo chamber of your own overthinking. You begin to tell yourself that people are exhausting, that the world is disappointing. You convince yourself that you are better off entirely alone, not because it's true, but because it is easier than being vulnerable. So, how do you fix it? How do you keep the rare power without letting the toxicity take over? You must remember the ultimate rule of the observing mind. You cannot observe the world if you are entirely removed from it. To master solitude, you must treat it like a medicine. In the right dose, it heals you. It makes you unstoppable. It gives you clarity and strength. But if you overdose on it, it numbs you to the beauty of life. Do not let your intelligence trick you into isolation. Keep your boundaries strong. Protect your peace fiercely. But remember to leave the door unlocked just enough to let life in. Go out into the chaos. Watch the people. Experience the friction. Let the world drain you just a little bit, so that when you finally return to your quiet room, it feels exactly like it is supposed to, like coming home. Your competence is real. Your ability to stand alone is formidable. But your ability to let the right person see you is your final transformation. Don't trade your peace for shallow connections, but don't let your boundaries become a tomb. The goal is not to be a loner, but to be unshakable. To choose solitude from a place of abundance, not from a place of fear. History remembers those who walked the lonely path, but it only honors those who returned with something to give. Protect your energy, honor your silence, but never forget that you were meant to be found. Thank you for exploring your mind with us today. If this helped you understand yourself a little better, consider subscribing and leaving a like. It quietly helps us continue to create these videos for you. Until next time, keep observing.